Here was an unusual job, the weighing of small test pieces of timber from each lot in stock to check their moisture content before the wood was passed as suitable for use in the manufacture of tail units for the famous Horsa gliders. Each little piece of wood was stamped and numbered before it could be fitted into the jigsaw, the successful completion of which was of the greatest importance to our chances of success in the coming invasion. Plywoods, limp as linoleum and strong as you like, and incidentally extremely costly, were used in skinning over the frames of the gliders which were to carry our men behind the enemy lines. The job had to be done with meticulous care and under conditions of the greatest secrecy, and the Eastleigh shop's workers, by this time quite used to secrets, knew how to keep mum while they hammered away at their all-important job. This is how the carriage shops looked when the building of the glider tail units was the top priority job. It's rather difficult to reconcile these scenes of tranquil efficiency with the rattle and roar of total war, the ultimate destiny of every one of the tail units made here. I've already mentioned the meticulous care taken in the manufacture of the tail units, and here is one of those interesting gadgets which was used to detect and register the presence of any moisture in the joints of the frames before they were skinned. Once the work of skinning the tailplanes was begun, the frames looked more like something to do with aircraft. Rather a far cry from those sleek, comfortable coaches in which we used to travel, and which would normally occupy the floor space in this shop during their building period. When putting in the spars of the tailplanes, the girls thought out a staccanovite method of attacking the job. As you see, they stood on opposite sides of the frame, and as one hammered, the other blocked the knocks, so to speak. Then they swapped tools so that the alternate nailing could progress rapidly. In the days when I was supposed to know something about aircraft recognition, I think I might have recognized this as a rudder in course of manufacture. These rudders were fabricated in exactly the same way. The framework was overlaid with the special ply and was afterwards covered with fabric. You can see this rudder shaping already. The extremely pliable skin was tailored to fit exactly. Notice how those points on the scallops meet the ribs in just the right place. The leather tapes held everything together while minute adjustments were made and all the screwing and gluing was completed. Naturally, the leading edges of these rudders, because of their need to stand up to the elements, were made additionally strong. That was the reason for the special ply. These spars were important too. They were included in the structure to give extra strength and to preserve the shape of the rudders. Their extreme lightness didn't contribute materially to the total weight of the whole construction. So far, so good. These completed skeletons can now wait for the next process while we take a look at the fins. The extremely opportune invention of the plywood used in these skinning processes on the tail unit components proved an absolute boon to the Southern Railway Workshops people. They handled so much of it during this period. It was extremely versatile in use, easy to deal with, and of great strength. Just the thing for the job in hand. Now, this was the really satisfying stage of the construction of the tail units. Fin, rudder, and tailplane were given a trial assembly. They called it a mock-up. The assembly was thoroughly examined, and any faults of construction and performance were adjusted before each individual part was finally covered with protective fabric. When everyone concerned was quite satisfied that everything was as it should be, the mock-up was dismantled again, and each component of the tail unit was taken back to its shop for the spraying treatment. It preserved the wood and made a satisfactory base for the covering. Housewives who spent their coupons on surplus government fabrics did well. Here is some of it undergoing a strict examination before use on the gliders. When this fabric was okayed, the glider components were covered with it, nearly the last of the processes as far as the Southern was concerned. This stitchcraft might be a little different from petit point or crewel work, but these girls certainly did sew a fine seam. A protective covering of dope was applied to the fabric to help the finished glider to withstand the effects of weather. After this, the seams were taped. The girls on this job soon developed an interesting technique known among themselves as passing the buck. The tapes, once applied and fixed in position over the seams, were then covered with another coat of protective dope, and when dry, the tailplane was ready for the finishing touches. The construction of these Horsa glider tail units in the Southern's workshops was one of those top-secret jobs which the everyday man and woman on the benches took as a matter of course. Most of them must have been fully aware of what was happening, but their still tongues indicated their wise heads. The general secrecy which surrounded their work was maintained to the last.